I should never have clicked on that link. I know that now, but at the time it seemed like just another silly curiosity from the deep web. I had always heard scary stories about what could be found there, but I never believed them. To me, it was just a place full of old files, secret forums, and weird websites. At least that was how it was, until that night. It was late, and I had been browsing for a few hours. Nothing interesting appeared, just the same empty forums and broken links. I was about to turn off the computer when a link caught my attention. No title, no description, just a strange address. My curiosity got the better of my common sense. I clicked it. The screen went completely black. I thought it was just another offline website, but then a white message appeared in the center of the monitor. "We are now watching you." My spine shivered. It was a joke, right? Some hacker trying to scare unsuspecting visitors. I smiled nervously, but before I could close the tab, my webcam turned on by itself. The green light shone in the corner of the screen. I had never activated the camera on that laptop. The image on the monitor showed my own face, pale and frightened. I tried to turn the camera off, but nothing worked. The flap wouldn't close. The off button was stuck. My heart raced as a new message appeared below the feed. "We like to watch you sleep." I pulled a piece of tape and covered the camera, trying to stay calm. But at that moment, the computer rebooted itself. The screen went black again. My reflection appeared in the switched-off monitor, the room behind me lit only by the dim light of the lamp. For a second, I had the feeling that there was someone else in the room, a shadow moving in the corner. I shook my head. It was just nerves. The computer turned on again, but now the screen showed a sequence of videos. In the first, I was sitting exactly where I was at that moment, staring at the monitor, as if someone had been filming me just a few minutes ago. The second video was more disturbing. I was asleep in my bed. The footage was clear and continuous. Every detail of my breathing, every slight movement in bed was recorded. The strangest thing was, I didn't remember leaving the camera on that night. Someone had been in my room. My fingers were sweating as I tried to close the video, but it kept playing. The third video started playing. It was a real-time image. The camera showed my front door, outside my house. The video was dark, but I could see someone standing in front of the door, motionless. The person had their back to the camera, wearing a black coat with the hood pulled up. They didn't move, just breathing slowly, as if they were waiting for something. A new message appeared. "Open the door." It was at that moment that I heard the doorbell ring. The doorbell rang again, this time louder, more insistent. My heart was pounding in my chest, and each second seemed to drag by. The image on the screen showed the same person standing in front of my door, motionless, head tilted slightly to the side, as if listening. "Open the door." The message flashed on the screen, repeatedly. I stood frozen, not knowing what to do. I took a deep breath and tried to rationalize. Maybe it was a coincidence. Maybe someone had gotten lost. But deep down, I knew that wasn't it. The third time the doorbell rang, it was followed by 3 sharp knocks on the wood of the door, loud enough to echo throughout the entire house. I picked up my cell phone and dialed the police number, my hands shaking so much that I almost dropped the phone. No signal. The screen showed, "Call not allowed." That had never happened before. I looked back at the monitor. The person was still there, now facing the camera. The hood covered his face, but something wasn't right. Even in the dim light, I could see there were no eyes or mouth, just a smooth, pale surface where his face should have been. I tried to convince myself it was a mask, some crazy prank by someone trying to scare me. But when he raised his hand and pressed his fingers against the door, my entire body shivered. The message changed. "This is your last chance." I didn't wait to find out what would happen. I ran to the kitchen and grabbed the sharpest knife I could find. Silence returned for a moment, which was even more terrifying. Suddenly, I heard the door latch slowly turn. It couldn't be. The door was locked. I looked back at the computer screen. The image was static now, but the door was open on the video. My instinct was to run. I crossed the living room, went up the stairs, and locked myself in my bedroom. I turned on the computer in my room, trying to access the cameras again, but all the images were down. Then I heard footsteps in the hallway. Slow, almost shuffling footsteps, stopping right outside the door. I held the knife tightly, holding my breath, trying to make as little noise as possible. The sound stopped. For a second, I thought I was safe, but when I turned to the window, he was there, looking at me from outside, the same face with no eyes and no mouth. He was on the second floor. The window didn't make a sound when it opened. Everything went dark. 2 days later, when I woke up, I was in the hospital. A nurse told me that the neighbors had called the police after hearing noises in my house. They said they found me unconscious in the room, but there were no signs of a break-in. My computer was gone. I tried to tell them the truth, but no one believed me. They said I was stressed, that maybe I was hallucinating from lack of sleep. But to this day, I can't sleep without looking at the door and window several times before closing my eyes. And sometimes, I still hear soft knocks on the door in the middle of the night. Always 3 knocks. I never opened the door again. I've always been passionate about games. Strategy games, mystery games, puzzles. I love the challenge, the feeling of being in control, of solving something complex. But what I'm going to tell you now has nothing to do with fun. It was a terrible mistake, a game that I should never have started. It was an ordinary night. I was browsing the deep web, looking for something different, when I came across a website called The Final Game. The description was vague, but it promised a unique experience for those who were brave enough to play. Without thinking twice, I clicked on the Start Game button. The screen went black for a few seconds. Then, a message appeared. Are you ready to start? Curious, I clicked yes. A new message appeared. The rules are simple. Complete the tasks, give up, and there will be consequences. I laughed. Consequences? What kind of game was this? The first task appeared right after. Take a picture of your window now. I thought it was just a silly prank, but to get in the mood, I decided to follow the instructions. I grabbed my phone and took a picture of the window. I went back to the website and uploaded it. Within seconds, a new message appeared. Very well. Now go to the kitchen and turn off all the lights. That was starting to bother me. How did the game know I was home? But again, I thought it was just an elaborate prank. Curiosity overcame fear, and I did as the website asked. I turned off the kitchen lights and went back to the computer. The next message was different. Open the front door. Someone is waiting for you. My entire body froze. My heart started beating faster. It couldn't be true. I slowly got up and walked to the door, trying to convince myself it was just a coincidence. I pressed my ear against the wood, hoping to hear something, but everything was silent. When I opened the door, there was no one there. I sighed in relief and went back to the computer, ready to close that damn game. But as soon as I sat down, a new message appeared on the screen. Why didn't you say hello to the man in the black coat? The air left my lungs. I looked back at the door. There was no one outside. My hands began to sweat, and the sound of the keyboard seemed louder than it should have been. Another message appeared, more direct. Last chance. If you want to stay alive, close your bedroom window now. I turned quickly and saw the window open, with the curtains gently swaying in the breeze, but I didn't remember opening it. And that's when I realized someone was watching me from the other side. For a second, I was paralyzed. Someone really was there, on the other side of the window, watching me. I couldn't see the face, just a tall, still silhouette, shrouded in darkness. My heart raced. The air felt heavier, harder to breathe. I slammed the window shut, locking it immediately. When I looked back at the computer screen, a new message was flashing. You're late. He's already inside. The blood ran cold in my veins. I looked around. Every shadow in the room seemed deeper, every noise louder. I tried to remain calm, tried to believe it was just an elaborate prank. But then I heard soft footsteps in the hallway. Slow, shuffled. I stood up, Gripping my cell phone tightly, I turned on the flashlight, shining it on the half-open door. The footsteps stopped. The silence in the air was so heavy that I could hear my own breathing. "Who's there?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. No answer. The light from my flashlight flickered as I approached the door. The hallway was empty, just darkness ahead. But there was something strange on the floor. Damp footprints leading straight to my bedroom. That was when the door behind me slammed shut. I turned quickly, but saw nothing but the curtains gently swaying. Another message appeared on my computer. Last phase, run. Without a second thought, I left the room and ran down the stairs. My mind screamed at me to get out of the house as quickly as possible. The sound of my footsteps echoed off the walls, and with every turn, I felt like someone was right behind me, breathing down my neck. I reached the front door and threw it open, stumbling outside. The cold night air enveloped me, and for a moment, I felt safe. But as I looked out at the deserted street, a final message appeared on my phone. "You should never have started." The screen went blank. Silence returned, but I knew I was not alone. Something had come out of that game and was still with me. I have not returned home since that night. I am constantly on the move, always looking over my shoulder, waiting for that thing to find me again. Because deep down, I know that this game is not over yet, and that it will never have a winner. It all started with a simple curiosity. I had always heard about the dark places of the deep web, the secret forums and the scary stories, but I never took them seriously until that night. It was late, and I was browsing websites that promised bizarre experiences. Nothing really caught my attention until I found a link called Soul Auction. The description was vague, but the name of the website intrigued me. Against my better judgment, I clicked. The page loaded slowly, and what appeared made me uncomfortable. It was an auction site, but they didn't sell ordinary objects. The categories were listed in red letters: body, life, soul. At first, I thought it was a joke in bad taste, but the more I explored, the stranger everything became. The images were disturbing, photos of people with blurred faces, vague descriptions, as if they were for sale. At the top of the page, a countdown marked the time remaining until the next auction. There were 2 minutes left. I was about to close the tab, but something made me stop. Curiosity got the better of me. I wanted to see what would happen when the counter hit 0. The words, "Auction started," appeared in red in the center of the screen. The first item was listed, Soul, ID 24,731. The description was short, available, age 28, starting bid, $10,000. My stomach churned. What did that mean? How could someone sell a soul? Before I could react, the bids started rolling in. $15,000, $20,000, $50,000. Faster and faster, the bids were rising in seconds. Suddenly, the site froze, and a new window opened. Interested in participating, enter your name to register. That's when I realized something was very wrong. My name was already filled in the field. How did they know who I was? My heart raced. My hands sweated as I tried to close the window, but nothing worked. The screen flickered, and one last message appeared. You have been added to the next auction. My face reflected on the screen was paler than ever. Before I could process what was happening, the countdown to the next auction began. 5 minutes. I turned off the computer, threw the power cord away, and stood in the dark, trying to convince myself that it was just a hacker prank. But at that exact moment, my phone vibrated. The message was simple. Your auction starts soon. Get ready. My entire body was shaking. I held my phone tightly, trying to understand what was happening. Your auction starts soon. Get ready. The message flashed on the screen, like a death sentence. I looked around, expecting to hear footsteps, noises, anything that would indicate someone's presence. The absolute silence only made everything worse. I took a deep breath, trying to convince myself that this was just a cruel joke. But deep down, I knew it wasn't. The computer, which I had turned off seconds before, turned on by itself. The screen glowed in the darkness, illuminating the room with a cold light. The countdown to the next auction continued. 15 seconds. The page was different. In place of the vague description, there was now a photo of me, taken at that moment, sitting exactly where I was, my face etched in terror. Below the image, a single word: available. I tried to pull out the power cord again, but it seemed stuck. The mouse was unresponsive. The keyboard was frozen. All I could do was watch as the countdown ticked down to 0. The auction began. The first bid appeared immediately: $10,000. My heart sank. More bids began to appear, one after the other, higher and higher. $20,000, $50,000, $100,000. Within seconds, the bids reached numbers that made no sense. I screamed, but no sound came out. It was then that the sound of a notification filled the room. A new message appeared on the screen: buyer confirmed, collection in progress. The air became thick, almost impossible to breathe. I felt an invisible pressure on my chest, as if something was pulling me down. My body felt heavy, my hands tingled, my vision began to blur. Then I heard footsteps, heavy, slow. They were coming from the hallway, each one closer than the last. I looked at the door, expecting it to open at any moment, but it remained closed. The sound grew louder, as if it were inside the walls. The computer screen flashed once more, with a final message: the soul has been sold. Thank you for participating. Everything went dark. I woke up hours later, lying on the bedroom floor, my body cold, my head throbbing. The computer was turned off, the power cord still unplugged. For a second, I thought it had been a dream. But then, I saw my cell phone on the floor, with a new message. It was just the first payment. See you soon. Since that night, nothing has returned to normal. My dreams are fragments of darkness and footsteps. My days are filled with a constant feeling of being watched. I changed computers, cell phones, moved cities, but the messages always find a way to reach me, because deep down, I know my soul no longer belongs to me. I have always been fascinated by unusual sounds. Ever since I was a child, I enjoyed recording noises and trying to discover their origins. The simple act of capturing something strange and deciphering it gave me a sense of control. But nothing, absolutely nothing, prepared me for what I found that night. It was late, around 3 in the morning, when I remembered a conversation on a forum about an audio file called "The Sound of Nothing." The comments ranged from skepticism to outright fear. Some said that if you listened to it until the end, something inside you would change. Others claimed that the file was cursed. Curious and, I confess, a little bored, I decided to look for it on the deep web. It didn't take long until I found it on a nameless website, just a black page with a download button. I clicked it without thinking twice. The file wasn't big, just a few megabytes. As soon as it finished downloading, I put on my headphones and pressed play. For the first few seconds, there was no sound at all, just absolute silence, as if the file were empty. At first, I thought it was a corrupted file, but something kept me going. The silence was different, dense, almost palpable, as if something was trapped inside, waiting to reveal itself. Then, the sound started. It was low, distant, like a whisper coming from far away. At first, it was impossible to make out what it was saying, but as the audio continued, the whispers grew louder and closer. The sensation was unsettling. The sound seemed to be inside the room. I looked around, trying to locate the source, but everything remained dark and still. The sound began to change, turning into a slow, heavy breathing, as if someone was right next to me. My heart raced. The air seemed colder, and I could feel a presence, although I couldn't see it. Still, I kept listening. That's when I heard my name. Lucas. I immediately ripped off the headphones, throwing them on the floor. The audio was still playing, but now it wasn't through the headphones. The sound was coming straight through the walls, reverberating around the room. The breathing grew louder, getting closer and closer. And then, silence again. For a moment, I thought it was over. But before I could breathe a sigh of relief, my computer screen flashed and a message appeared. Why did it stop? It's not over yet. The message on the screen kept flashing insistently. Why did it stop? It's not over yet. My heart felt like it wanted to beat out of my chest, and the silence around me was so heavy that I could hear my own blood pounding in my ears. The screen went black for a second, and then the audio came back, even louder, even closer. This time, the sound was no longer distant breathing. It was a low, anguished cry, something that seemed to pass through the walls. I closed the program, but the audio continued. I tried to turn off the computer, but it wouldn't respond. The sound kept growing, filling the room. That's when I heard footsteps. Slow, precise. Someone was coming up the stairs. My body froze. The footsteps were getting closer and closer, and I could feel their weight in the air, as if the house itself was breathing along with the invisible presence. I grabbed my cell phone to call someone, the police, anyone. But the screen was frozen, just like the computer. The footsteps stopped outside my door. The breathing on the other side was so loud that it seemed to be inside my room. Everything went cold, and the smell of something damp and old invaded the air, like rotten wood mixed with wet earth. The door creaked slowly, opening just enough to leave a dark crack. Then I saw a shadow moving. It was projected on the wall, long and distorted, but there was nothing there to create that reflection. My body wanted to run, but my feet were glued to the floor. That's when I heard the voice again, but this time it wasn't a whisper. It was a scream, deafening and desperate. Don't turn back. My legs gave out, and I fell to my knees, the scream still echoing in my head. Everything stopped for a second. The sound disappeared. The room plunged into absolute silence, as if the world had frozen. And then, the door closed by itself. The computer screen returned to normal. The audio file was over, as if it had never been played. I sat there, trying to catch my breath, my heart still beating wildly. My phone suddenly lit up, and a message appeared on the screen. You heard me. We are with you now. Since that night, I have never been able to sleep properly. Sometimes, in the middle of the night, I wake up to the same sound of footsteps in the hallway, followed by slow, heavy breathing, as if it were still there, outside my door. But I never open it. And the worst of all, the audio is still on my computer. It opens by itself every now and then, always playing the same thing, my name being whispered, closer each time. I have always been skeptical about stories of ghosts, curses, or supernatural entities. For me, everything had a logical explanation, something that technology could prove or disprove. But what happened to me was beyond logic, beyond anything I could imagine. It all started when I received a strange file in my email. The subject line was, "Are you ready to see the future?" There was no sender, just an attachment called vision.mp4. I thought it was a prank, maybe a virus, but my curiosity got the better of me. I opened the video. At first it was just a static image of a dark room, lit by a dim monitor light. I looked more closely and noticed something disturbing. It was my room. The same desk, the same computer, even the jacket I had thrown on the chair a few hours earlier. The video showed nothing strange, just a still image of the room. But little by little, the scene began to change. The lights on the monitor flickered, and the camera slowly moved to the bedroom door. That's when I saw the door open on its own. In the video, a long, indistinct shadow entered the room, moving as if floating. It stopped next to the bed, watching something, or someone, watching me. My heart raced. I paused the video, trying to convince myself that it was some elaborate setup, but then the video started playing again on its own. Now the camera was focused on my face as I slept. The shadow leaned over me. The video froze for a second, and then the screen went black. A white message appeared. "See you soon." I stood there, staring at the black screen, unable to move. The room was silent, but the air seemed heavier by the second. I took a deep breath, trying to process what I had just seen. How was this video showing my room? Who could have filmed this? The message remained on the screen. "See you soon." Suddenly, the computer turned off by itself. The silence that followed was suffocating. In the corner of the room, the chair rocked slightly, as if someone had just gotten up from it. But I was alone. The feeling of being watched overcame me. My eyes swept the room, trying to find anything out of place. That was when I heard the sound. 3 slow knocks on the door. My heart stopped for a second. Who could be there at this hour? I stood up slowly, each step heavy as lead. When I got close to the door, I hesitated. I didn't want to open it, but I knew I had to. I gripped the doorknob tightly and, before turning it, asked, "Who's there?" No answer, just silence. I opened the door at once, but the hallway was empty. The dim light from the room illuminated the floor, revealing something that made me freeze. Wet footprints that went from the door to the middle of the hallway and disappeared. I went back to the room, my heart racing. The computer had turned on again, and the video was back. But this time, it was different. The camera was filming in real time. It was my room, exactly as it was at that moment. In the video, I saw myself standing still, staring at the screen. But there was something else. Behind me, the shadow was back. It was clearer now, with long arms and skeletal fingers that slowly extended towards me. I turned around on impulse, but there was no one there. The computer screen began to flicker, and a new message appeared. "You can't run away." The sound of footsteps echoed down the hallway again, louder and louder, as if someone was running straight for the bedroom door. I locked the door and stepped away, holding my breath, expecting the worst. But instead of knocking, everything went silent again. The computer shut down once more. I grabbed my cell phone to try to call someone, but the screen showed only one sentence, written in red letters: "We're in." The light in the room flickered, and the air became so cold that my breath came out in the form of steam. I knew that this wasn't just a digital prank. Something real, something alive, had come out of that video. Since that night, everything has changed. I deleted the file, bought a new computer, but it didn't work. The entity is still with me. Sometimes when I'm alone, I hear footsteps in the hallway or feel a cold touch on my shoulder, even when no one is around. And every time I turn on my computer, the same message appears, even on a new device: "See you soon."